For quite some time now, Canadians have been able to buy different types of station wagons from Volkswagen. Whether it was the Dasher, the Quantum, the Passat, or now the Golf, VW has ensured that the wagon stays in Volkswagen. Our spotlight is on this 2019 Volkswagen Golf Alltrack. It has a 168 horsepower turbocharged inline-4 engine with a 6-speed automated manual DSG transmission, though you can get a proper 6-speed manual if you want. Now this is a little bit bigger than the e-Golf we featured. In fact, it's 38 millimeters higher, 7 millimeters shorter for the wheelbase, believe it or not, 320 millimeters longer overall, and has a storage capacity in the trunk that is 368 liters larger than the e-Golf. Somehow they've been able to do it to add more space to essentially the same vehicle. So we're going to be showing you everything about the 2019 Alltrack and everything you need to know if you're in the market for a station wagon. Last year we had the chance to feature the 2018 e-Golf, and it was the first Mk7 Golf that I got my hands on, and don't tell anybody, it was also the first Golf in general that I've ever driven. So now we're on to the second one. This is the station wagon version, the Alltrack, which is sort of a mix between a crossover. It's not quite like Volvo's Cross Countries or even something like the Subaru Outback, which technically are considered crossovers, but this is still categorized as a compact car instead of a crossover, and it makes sense. It drives more like a car. But I want to talk about some of the exterior stuff on this car, and we'll go on the inside and talk about the rest of it. But it is slightly different from the e-Golf and slightly different from something like the Golf R or even the GTI. You have adaptive LED high and low beams on the front with halogen fog lights. I think that the mix is pretty good. We talked about it with the Jetta, and we've talked about it with other vehicles before, where technically the halogen fog lights work out a little bit better for actual functionality. You have front and rear park distance control. You have a backup camera, heated mirrors, not auto folding though, and keyless entry. There's also a $1,750 driver assistance package, which adds automatic emergency braking. You get those park sensors, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control, and automatic high beams. So quite a bit of kit going on for a lot of the safety stuff that we expect to see. And overall, you get quite a bit for it. Now, the only thing with this car though, MSRP is about $38,000 Canadian. It's about $8,000 more than the 2019 Jetta that we featured. And I don't know, do you really get $8,000 worth of stuff on this compared to the Jetta? We'll talk about it as we go around. But aside from that, you have a few options for colors, not 40 of them like you can get with the regular Golf versions, but with the Alltrack, it is a little bit more off-road oriented. As I mentioned, it's a little higher up off the ground, and then you have the unpainted plastic cladding around the bottom of the trim. But aside from this, I see a lot of them on the road. It's got 4Motion, so it's a good option for people here in Quebec. It's a great option if you just need 4-wheel drive and you like the idea of having a small vehicle. And in station wagon format, it's even more functional. But around back, there is no power liftgate. You don't really expect that in the consumer segment. So you can open it up, has a good lift height so you can get bigger items into the back there. You just put your hand in the Volkswagen badge and it'll open up. And that's where your camera is hidden as well. But there isn't a whole lot else to talk about on the outside. Let's jump inside, talk about the features there, and then we'll take it on a road test. We jump on the inside of the Alltrack here, and it's pretty familiar to what we saw on the e-Golf. Little different, also quite different from the Jetta, but kind of similar to what Volkswagen has been doing with their interiors. There's no digital cockpit like we saw on the e-Golf. A little bit of a bummer, but what can you do? 8-inch infotainment screen, has navigation, SiriusXM Radio, Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto, plus a 9-speaker Fender audio system. It actually sounds really good. Plus you can crank up the subwoofer and the bass to have a little bit more bass if that's what you want. Moving down the center, you do have dual zone automatic climate control. Both front seats have heat, but there's no heated steering wheel or heated rear seats. Panoramic sunroof up top lets in a lot of light. And aside from that, there's no other real major features. There's no home link. There is what Volkswagen calls ambient lighting. I'd say it's more like light mood lighting. There's 2 strips that run along the front doors, and then footwell lights, and it's just a white light. So I wouldn't call it ambient lighting. It doesn't even really pass off as mood lighting. And then in terms of seating, they are leather faced. They do have power controls for the driver with no memory, and a 2-way power with rest manual for the passenger. I do find that the white leather on here is a little nicer than the black leather, and they do have leatherette door cards, so a little comfortable there, but everything else is plastic. They have the faux carbon weave trim around, so it works out pretty well. Very similar again to other products from Volkswagen that we've featured. Backseat space is a little snug. It's pretty comparable to other compact vehicles, but smaller than it was on the Jetta. When you get into the back, if you're a bigger guy like me, it'll be a little tight. Headroom is a little lower on this vehicle as well, but if you have kids, they'll fit back there without too much complaint. Plus, there's an air vent that runs in the center console, so you do have a little bit better airflow back there, but again, there's no features. There's no USB charger or heated seats. You just have an armrest with cup holders, but the seats do fold flat, so if you do want to use this for maximum storage, you do have that as an option. The last thing I'll mention on the inside here is all of the lighting, except for the trunk, is all LED. I don't know why the trunk light is a old incandescent light. Couldn't tell you why, but everything else is LED, which is very nice. Gives it a modern look. Even the outside backup lights are LED as well. So you have some small little details like that, which certainly make it a nice ride. And I'm telling you, I do see a lot of these on the road, and I enjoy driving this every single time I get into it. I like it a little bit more. So let's take it on the road now, talk about how it is there, and tell you everything else you need to know about the Golf Alltrack. I think it's safe to say that it's a good idea to get the performance stuff out of the way first. That's what you guys want to see. So we're going to go from a dig here. We're in manual mode, in sport mode. So let's give it a go. Whoa, it's quick to shift. 100. Ooh, okay. So that's kind of typical for what you get with a vehicle with quite a bit less than 200 horsepower. A little tiny bit of turbo lag right off the line. But, you know, to be fair, I think most people who are going to be buying this aren't going to be using it 0 to 100 kilometers an hour every time the light goes green, right? The idea is to be economical with it. Yeah, it's not the most fuel efficient vehicle that we've driven. It's also not the most fuel efficient vehicle we've driven from Volkswagen. But the point is, this is meant to be a family hauler. Good to be able to put all your stuff in it, put your whole family in it, and yeah, I'd say look good doing it too. It is a fun car to drive. I mean, it's essentially a Golf, right? It's just a little bit bigger in the back, but it drives just as well as any other Golf Mark 7 would. You have quick shifting with the DSG. I really do like it. It uses only the 6-speed DSG. In Europe, I believe you can get the 7-speed version of it. Doesn't make a huge difference overall. And like we've mentioned, you can get the 6-speed manual with this, regardless whether you go with the regular Sport Wagon or the Alltrack. So you do have quite a bit of option there if you're looking for a little bit of extra fun. Aside from that, though, the car really handles and drives pretty well. It is a little noisier in here. I know we're going quicker than we normally do. We're just filming it in a slightly different part of our region out here, so it might be a little bit louder than you're used to, but this is what you can expect from pretty much any other compact vehicle on the road. It's not quite as quiet as something that we see in the larger cars, especially in the luxury segment, but it also isn't meant to be. The Golf is always meant to be a relatively practical, affordable car. The thing is, with the affordability on this, at $38,000, it's quite a bit more. It's about $8,000 more than the Jetta that we featured. Is it $8,000 more car? I don't know. I mean, the Jetta had quite a bit going for it, plus it had more tech. You lose out on the wagon portion of it, so it'll come down to you deciding whether or not you need it. Plus, this has all-wheel drive, and if you live here in Quebec, then it is a good plus to have. Not necessarily on a day like today. It's actually decent enough out. You know, at least it's not raining or snowing. Can't ask for much more than that. But I really do enjoy driving this car, and I enjoy driving this car a lot more than I anticipated. I mean, I booked it knowing that I love driving wagons, and it'd be a nice little wagon to boot around with for a week. But honestly, I'm really coming to like this car a lot every time I get behind the wheel. It does have a lot going for it in terms of the compact segment. It's a wagon, that's a huge plus. It's got the DSG, which I think is a lot of fun. Gives you a little bit better driving dynamics than you get with just a regular automatic. And again, with the manual, you can go that route also. But honestly, like, I didn't think I'd be saying this. I genuinely just got into the car, thought we'll do some stuff on it, and maybe I'll be able to move some furniture if I wanted to. But honestly, I'm just really enjoying this car a lot more than I thought I would. And that's the thing, right? It comes down to the value proposition you get from the Golf. And Volkswagen, I think, spends most of their time developing the Golf to be an excellent car. And that's why it's so good. We took a look at the Jetta and we talked about a lot of the cost-cutting measures that were implemented on that car. But with the Golf, because it is such a popular seller globally, I think Volkswagen does spend a little bit more time on this to make sure that it is the best Golf it can be. And I have to say, I feel that. And we talked about the Jetta, 2 generations prior to the one that we featured, I'd say was the best one. But with every version of the Golf, they just get better and better. And I mean, this one is so good. It makes the 6th gen look not bad, but I mean, this looks a lot better. And I'm seeing them everywhere. I didn't notice them before, but once again, the Grand Theft Auto effect is in full swing here. I'm seeing not only Alltracks everywhere, but other versions like the Sport Wagon and even previous generation Golf wagons on the road. People here absolutely love them. So there's a lot of choice for people who are looking for these vehicles. It's not just for, people like me who want to have a wagon. It really could be a good replacement if you're looking at a crossover or something kind of in this ballpark, a smaller crossover vehicle. This is a great option. It's a lot of fun to drive. It handles really well. Even going over some of the rougher patches here on our terrible roads in Quebec actually eats up the bumps pretty well for a small vehicle. I'm telling you, it's an impressive little car, and it really doesn't surprise me now that I've driven this to understand why the Golf is such a popular vehicle and why it's such a popular vehicle with a lot of really big time reviewers who could afford to buy your Aston Martins and your Ferraris and your Lamborghinis, but why they'd still buy something like a GTI. Now, a GTI wagon would be a lot of fun. They have talked about having the R wagon come here, be a lot of fun. But I mean, even with this, I know it's not the most powerful, it still gets the job done. And because it's got the DSG, you can have just a little bit more fun with it, even though it's not overly quick. I really enjoyed my week with the 2019 Golf Alltrack a lot more than I originally anticipated. In fact, I kept the car in sport mode with the manual shifting the entire time, and really couldn't complain about the 168 horsepower engine. But before we get into everything good and bad, let's talk fuel economy. We had excellent weather during our 100-kilometer test loop and kept the HVAC off and the windows cracked open a bit and netted 7.3 liters per 100 kilometers or 32 US miles per gallon. Our 873-kilometer week with the Alltrack was a little less efficient at 9.2 liters per 100 kilometers or 25 mpg. Overall, not bad considering this is a compact wagon. There's a lot to like about the Alltrack, starting with its sporty road characteristics and excellent handling. The 6-speed DSG is crisp to shift, though the 7-speed would be a nice plus from the European models. As mentioned, the 6-speed manual is available on either trim for the Alltrack and all but the Execline for the regular sport wagon. Exterior styling is also a like for us, given the Mk7's already excellent design, and you don't really take any hits for extending the rear to accommodate the wagon. And finally, the LED adaptive front headlights with automatic high beams were great for nighttime visibility, even with the halogen-based fog lights. But how about dislikes though? VW still doesn't offer a heated steering wheel on the Golf, nor can you get heated rear seats, which almost every other compact car in this segment offers at some trim level. The North American navigation software is still dated looking and could use a refresh, along with the rest of the infotainment's UI. And really, the only other hit the Alltrack takes comes from the quote-unquote ambient lighting. It's a letdown compared to the e-Golf's extensive customization. Ultimately, the Alltrack is about $2,000 more than the Sport Wagon Execline, adds about 34mm to the ride height, along with the unpainted trimmer on the bottom of the vehicle. The only major difference with the Alltrack is the manual, as the Execline Sport Wagon only comes with the DSG. So unless you absolutely must have that extra 34mm of ground clearance and row your own gears, I'd suggest taking the Sport Wagon. But either way you slice it, the Golf Estate is a seriously enjoyable car, and it's no surprise to me why I see them everywhere here in Quebec.